and welcome back to my channel, Drunk Crafts with Paige. I am Paige, and this week I am drinking another new cider. This one is called Smackintosh, and it's made with Macintosh apples from Michigan, and it's very sweet and very good. We are into the beginning of October, which to me feels like the official start of fall, and as much as I am pumped and ready for fall weather, I am also a little sad to say goodbye to the summer season. So as a nice final farewell, I thought that we could reattempt a craft that we have done previously with some modifications, some improvements, and a brand new mold. So if you guys are ready to retry our beach body project, please continue watching. Yes, we are reattempting our beach body resin project. The first time we tried it, there were a couple things that I wish we would have done a little bit differently. So we're obviously going to test out those modifications as well as a brand new mold. I'm pretty positive I have voiced my feelings about female-oriented crafts, body positivity crafts. I love them. I love celebrating different sizes and shapes and colors of every person. And one of the things that I immediately thought of when we made our first beach body was, this girl needs more curves. And there's nothing wrong with the body that we created. I just wanted to feel a little bit more represented, and so I went on the hunt for a curvaceous body mold. And thank you to Etsy shops that are a little bit more inclusive with their silicone molds and have a broader range and different appearance of bodies. This silicone mold is not transparent like the one that we used previously. It is just thick silicone, and there's our mold inside. And I will put a picture of what this figure is supposed to look like. Very similar to the one that we did make. She's just a little bit more voluptuous. So I am so excited to be able to use this brand new mold, this thicker girl, and we are going to do another attempt at our beach body piece. So let's get started. All right, you guys, so full disclosure, this is not my first attempt at this. This is my second, not including this one, and we will talk about it at the end of the video. But I brought along the mold we used last time because it is clear and you can see the design a bit better, and also our past project to talk about things we're going to try to do differently, some upgrades, some mistakes, what we're going to try to do. So first off, I am trying to pour smaller layers. Obviously this mold is slightly bigger than the one we did before, but in efforts to reduce air bubbles, I'm going to be pouring thinner layers, and this will also be key when we get around to the layer where I want to incorporate the seashell and different things for the beach. But I have our resin already mixed up. I'm letting it just kind of chill to try to also reduce air bubbles. And one of the things I didn't enjoy as much about our first attempt was how dark our blue got. I put 2 drops of alcohol ink in there, so when we try this time, we're just gonna stick with 1. I'm gonna use the color just blue, that's what it's called, and we're only gonna put 1 quick drop in there. There's 1. Mix that around gently to try to not agitate it so much. Once again, the bubbles. We've got this gorgeous light blue color you can kind of see through the cup, and I'm going to gently pour it in. Now that was about half of the container. I think this full container is 100 milliliters, so it was around 50. And I'm going to keep an eye on it, hit it with the heat gun to get rid of any air bubbles, maybe kind of squish the mold around just a little bit to make sure it gets into all the cracks. And we're basically going to keep doing this, small layers of blue resin, just with the 1 drop of alcohol ink. until we get a little bit like kind of around the waist mark, because once we get there, then the next layer is going to be the one that I want to put a shell in. So we'll probably time lapse through the first few layers because you guys get the general idea, and I'll come back to you when it's time to add our beach goodies. We are on, fingers crossed, our last layer of just the blue resin. Right now we're right around the hip mark, and I'm hoping, since I'm doing skinnier layers, that I can wait until this resin is just a little tacky and be able to push my seashell, my driftwood pieces. I've got a stone, just some beachy items that I want to throw in this piece that will add to the aesthetic. When we created our first beach body, I was not diligent about keeping track of how fast the upper layer cured, and so when we poured the sand in on top of the seashell, it ended up getting lost. You can't really see where it is. So the goal behind this is that the seashell and the rock and those certain things will just kind of sit on top of the sand rather than being fully buried by it, and we can still see them as if they're sitting on the sand in the water. So I'm hoping this part makes me really nervous, but I'm really hoping we can achieve that tackiness and I can lightly press them in and keep them in place where I want them to. If that doesn't work out, we're gonna have to pour probably the thinnest layer of resin ever to kind of balance them and get them in place the way I want them to. So I'm gonna pour just a little bit of resin in here. I think right around there is where I'd like that layer to end. And we're gonna keep an eye on it, see if we can reach that perfect tackiness. We have achieved a level of goo. I'm gonna do my best to very gently press in this seashell. This rock. And some driftwood. They're all kind of nestled in there right now. I have no idea how this is gonna go. We'll wait a bit for this to cure more, and we'll come back to do our final layer with the sand. It is time for our final layer. I've got a big ol' cup of sand here that we're going to slowly mix some resin into. One of the things I noticed with our last attempt at this was that we had too much resin and not enough sand. So when the mold sat upside down like this, the sand sank to the bottom, our resin went to the top, and now we've got a weird clear layer from all the excess resin. So I'm gonna gently stir resin in, and once it gets to more of a paste, we'll call it good. Resin is self-leveling, so that's super cool, and even though the sand has the texture to it, it should eventually level out. Our sand is now kind of the consistency of batter. It's still decently thick, and I'm not worried about the resin separating from this. So we're going to glob it on in for our final layer. All right, well, several days later, and our piece is finally ready to be demolded. It is fully cured, and you guys, I dedicated pretty much an entire afternoon / evening, most of my day, into creating this piece. I didn't want to wait too long in between layers out of fear that they wouldn't cure properly together, and like I said, this was not my first attempt. So I guess let's talk about my first crummy attempt at this piece. I got about 70% of the way through and decided to scrap it and start over because it was not turning out the way I wanted it to be. So here is our torso. As you can see, I added some white alcohol ink to the first layer right into the neck because I wanted it to look like waves. Well, the white just ended up spreading all over the place, and now we have a different color layer. So I ended up pouring some really thick layers of resin, which is why for my second attempt I went for some skinnier ones, because little did I know, with my resin in such thick layers, it kind of cures the way that ice freezes, that it got really cured and sticky on the top, but the underneath portion was very, very liquidy. And when I went to press in all of my shell, my rock, I ended up with a whole bunch of bubbles. See if it'll focus for me. There's a whole lot of bubbles trapped in there. It's so blurry, it looks awful, you can't see anything that's in there, and I scrapped it. So now we are going to demold our second attempt. Fingers crossed, it turns out way better than this one did. I have good feelings about it. So let's take it outside and demold this puppy. You guys, I think she is so gorgeous, and she got a donk. Okay, so first of all, the body is beautiful. I love how curvy she is. But second of all, we succeeded in almost every improvement that I wanted to make compared to our first go. The blue is a lighter color. You can actually see, and we have detail, some beachy items in there, and there is no weird, we didn't add too much resin to our sand, so there's no extra resiny layer. I would say this is an overall success, and I feel like even though we've got like a couple of pockets of air that got stuck, a few bubbles, my resin skills, I think, they just keep improving. I am really proud of this piece. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the craft. I would definitely say that this piece is a success, trying to improve on our original. So if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Also, there are links for my social media in the description box below. I'll see you guys all for the next one. Cheers!